Hi, this is Jürgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. I'm making this video from home today, and I'm doing it to stand up for freedom of speech and in support and solidarity of the French teacher Samuel Paty, who paid the ultimate price for the crime of blasphemy in Europe, in France, in 2020. So the reason I'm posting this is I just shared a drawing of the Prophet Muhammad on my Facebook wall. I'm inviting everyone who is listening to this, who's listening to the Provocative Hypnosis channel, to either draw or post a drawing of Muhammad in public. Now, the reason I'm asking you to do this is because if you work as an agent of change, as a coach, or as a therapist, freedom of speech is the very principle that makes our profession even possible. It's what makes every other freedom that you have possible. Remember, without freedom of speech, you don't have the freedom to freely inquire and to challenge and to dispute any idea publicly. That means that you can't have science. You can't have science unless you have freedom of speech. Because if you don't have the freedom to publicly challenge any idea, that means that the very ideas that you can't challenge, the truth in those realms then become up to religious authorities or group consensus. You can't have democracy. How could you ever have democracy if people can't publicly challenge any idea or any ideology? These days, with all these hate speech laws that, remember, Stalin's Soviet Union pioneered into the United Nations system in the early 50s, this was to silent dissenters. In the last 20 plus years, a Muslim organization with 57 supportive countries called the IOC has lobbied very effectively in the United Nations under the guise that our freedom of speech somehow is an attack on their religious freedom. And we've seen more and more hate speech laws. We see more and more people charged and prosecuted for hate speech due to criticizing the Prophet Muhammad or the ideology of Islam. We see everyone today knows that if you publicly draw Muhammad and enough people see it, your life is at risk. You're going to have to live under police protection. We can talk about Theo Van Gogh. We can talk about Ayaan Hirsi Ali, critics of Islam. We can talk about Geert Wilders. We can talk about Lars Wilks. We can talk about Kurt Westergaard. We can talk about Jyllands-Posten. We can talk about Charlie Hebdo. We can talk about Samuel Paty, the teacher in France who got killed. We have to take a stand. We have to stand up for freedom of speech. The only ethical thing to do is to spread the risk. Because if newspapers, if editors, if people had enough balls, enough courage, enough integrity to spread the risk, there would be no risk. But since most of us won't do that, that makes the few courageous people who do so, it makes their lives at risk in Europe in 2020. This has to be this has to be unacceptable, right? You can't have peace because without freedom of speech, because for there to be peace, there's always going to be differences of opinion. There's always going to be differences of opinion. If we can't deal with that using dialogue, using persuasion, the only thing left is exactly what Islam stands for, and that is violence. The only thing that's left is violence, whether from a theocracy or from the states. So if you want science, if you want free inquiry, if you want something resembling a democracy, if you want to work as a therapist, as a coach, as an agent of change, You gotta step up to the plate and defend the very principle that makes your profession possible. And if you're comfortable with this idea of hate speech laws that the state can deem your speech as crime, remember, it's only a matter of time before someone whose political orientations you despise come to power and then have the power to silence you by deeming your speech as hate crime. This is exactly why the Soviet Union pioneered this into the United Nations system to be able to deal with dissenters as criminals. So please, if you are a therapist, if you are a coach, if you are an agent of change, enough is enough. Step up to the plate, take a stand, defend the very principle upon which your profession rests. Enough with the political correctness, enough with the phoniness. Take a stand. That's my invitation for you. And help spread the risk.